The four Arab states last month gave Qatar 10 days to meet a list of demands, with the deadline expiring Monday. During a trip to Rome on Saturday, Qatar's foreign minister told reporters the list was made to be rejected. Qatar is not afraid of any actions that could be taken against it, Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani said. There is no fear. Qatar is prepared to face whatever consequences, he told reporters. The list includes 13 preconditions to ending Qatar's isolation, including shutting down the country's state-funded Al Jazeera news network and reducing ties with Iran. Saudi Arabia's foreign minister Adel Al-Jubeir called the list non-negotiable last week. The countries accuse Qatar of supporting terrorism and destabilizing the Gulf region. Made to be rejected. Qatar, which shares its only land border with Saudi Arabia, has rejected the accusations, calling them unjustified and baseless. Its foreign minister says the list of demands has unmeetable stipulations. It's not made to be accepted or not made to be negotiated, he said. The state of Qatar, instead of rejecting it as a principle, we are willing to engage in providing the proper condition for further dialogue. Some key demands. CNN obtained the list of demands, which Qatari officials confirmed as authentic. The four countries have told Qatar to shut down the Al Jazeera media network and its affiliates, and cut ties to extremist organizations including the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas. The states have told Qatar it must stop interfering in their affairs and end the practice of giving Qatari nationality to their citizens, and say that the oil-rich state must pay them reparations for damages or costs incurred because of Qatari policies. They also want Qatar to halt the development of a Turkish military base in the country and reduce diplomatic ties with Iran. Since the onset of Qatar's isolation, Turkey has fast-tracked a decision to approve the deployment of troops to Qatar, part of an existing bilateral agreement. Iran, meanwhile, has sent plane loads of fruit and vegetables to Qatar. Diplomatic maneuverings. Al Thani told his Italian counterpart during his visit to Rome that the demands affected Qatari sovereignty, aiming to impose guardianship on it. The state of Qatar is a sovereign state and does not allow any external interference, Al Thani said, according to a statement from his ministry. The foreign minister said Qatar was ready to engage in constructive dialogue and negotiations with the countries of the blockade, provided that the dialogue is based on sound foundations, the statement said. Last week, Al Thani addressed representatives of the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council on the illegal measures being taken against it, the ministry said. He also met with U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. Tillerson has repeatedly called for dialogue between countries on both sides of the diplomatic rift, advocating an even-handed approach to the standoff. Qatar is a U.S. ally and the U.S. maintains a large military base there, home to some 11,000 personnel. McCain and Abu Dhabi chairman of the Senate Committee on Armed Services John McCain met the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, and other UAE officials in Abu Dhabi on Saturday. McCain was accompanied by 4 other U.S. senators, the official Emirates news agency reported. UAE Minister of State for Foreign Affairs Anwar Mohammed Gargash told CNN's international diplomatic editor Nick Robertson the UAE had assured McCain that the U.S. base in Qatar would be unaffected by the standoff and would be able to continue operating without interruption. Gargash said there would be no big bang when the deadline for the demands passed, but rather a gradual turning of financial screws, and that he expected the standoff with Qatar to last for months. He said he foresaw a role for U.S. and European states to monitor any future agreement with Qatar in the areas of finance, refuge, incitement and political support for terrorists. The monitors would check. Qatar was working to ensure that money did not reach terrorists. Legal process was taken against designated terrorists living in Qatar. Al Jazeera and others did not incite terrorism or extremism, and that terror groups were not aided politically by air from Qatar, Gargash said. Russia. The Kremlin said Russian President Vladimir Putin spoke to both the Emir of Qatar and the King of Bahrain on Saturday to urge for a diplomatic resolution to end the crisis. Vladimir Putin stressed the importance of political and diplomatic efforts aimed at overcoming the disagreements and normalizing the current complicated situation, the statement said. Meantime, the states that issued the demands on Friday informed the World Trade Organization of the legality of severing diplomatic and consulate ties with Qatar, the official Saudi press agency reported. The WTO's Goods Trade Council had been meeting in the Swiss city of Geneva. In a joint statement which was read in the meeting, the four countries confirmed that all measures taken do conform with the international systems which legally give the member countries room to move against any country who dares to harm their security and stability, a sovereign right conforming with Article 21 of the General Agreement of Trade in Goods, SPA. Reported. What sparked the crisis? The diplomatic crisis came 2 weeks after Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain and Egypt blocked several Qatari media outlets, including Al Jazeera, over comments allegedly made by Qatari Emir Sheikh Tamim Al Hamad Al Thani. Qatari citizens were expelled from Saudi Arabia, Bahrain and the UAE, and those countries also banned their own citizens from entering Qatar. Al Thani reportedly hailed Iran as an Islamic power, and criticized U.S. President Donald Trump's policy towards Tehran on a news website. Qatar, we can defend our currency and the economy. Qatar said the website was hacked, and U.S. officials later told CNN that U.S. investigators believe Russian hackers were behind it. U.S. officials said the goal of the Russians appeared to be creation of a rift among the U.S. and its allies. Saudi Arabia and Iran are at odds over a number of regional issues, including Iran's nuclear program and what Saudis see as Tehran's growing influence in the kingdom's sphere of influence, especially in Syria, Lebanon and neighboring Yemen.